Hi, this is Meghna. In this module, we're going to learn how to create tables. And before we start with tables, let's quickly review what we have learned so far. So first, we started learning how to install MySQL, and then we learned about types of commands. So we have seen DDL, DML, DCL, and TCL commands. And then we have seen data types overview. So we have just learned about integer data types, string data types, date time data types. So we have seen different data types. Now in this module, we're going to learn how to create tables. So let's get started. Now for that, what I'm going to do is, so let's open MySQL. Now I'm just opening MySQL. So click on start and then you can see all apps and we have, I'll just navigate to M. So you can see we have MySQL here and then you need to select here MySQL Workbench. So we installed MySQL. Or you don't have you don't even have to go like this. You can simply click on start and type here MySQL Workbench. So let me click on this. Now I click on this. So while installing it, I've given a password. So I've given the password as root. So you just enter what you have given. So I'm entering my password and click OK. So now I've just connected to MySQL. And now before you create table, so you need to understand, so what is the requirements that you got from the customer? Now, let's assume that you are creating a HR management system and your customer has given a requirement, something like this. Let me open an Excel sheet. Now this is the requirement that you got from your customer or product owner saying like you need to store employee details and that needs to have ID. It should be a number between 1000 to 1001 to this value, 1 lakh. Name up to 30 characters. And salary, you need to store between 2 lakhs to 2 crores. And then date of joining, it should be a date. And email ID should be up to 35 characters. And age should be between 20 to 100. So like this, you'll get the requirement from your business owner. And you need to create table which will have uh, the data types which can actually store these values. So now that is the reason why we learn data types. Now date of joining should store date. So you need to know what data type you have to use. And email ID should be up to 35 characters. So each employee will have different email ID. So you have to use varchar. And let's try to create the table. Now let's go to MySQL. And before you create a table, you have to create a database. So first thing what you have to do is, so my project that we're going to do is HRMS. So let's create a database. So to create a database, now a database is group of tables. For now, you can assume like group of tables. It'll also have some other objects, but for now, let's create a database. And inside the database, you need to create tables. Now, first I'm creating create database HRMS. So this is going to be my database name, or you can call it a schema for now. So already MySQL will give some default schemas. You can see here we have 3 schemas already. Now we're going to create a new database. Also, you can call schema for now. So let me select this and click on this execute button. So now I've just executed this. You can see at the bottom create database green tick mark is there. Now immediately that will not reflect here. You just need to refresh it. So let me click on refresh and you will see that HRMS is created here. Now once HRMS database is created, you need to make that as a default one. So all you have to do is right click on this and set as default schema. Now the moment you set this as default schema, you will see that that'll become bold. So now we have created a schema database, and inside the schema we need to create tables. Now when you are creating tables, you need to be very sure about what data types you have to use for this columns. Now for that, what we have to do is, let me open Google Chrome and let me quickly search for, we already discussed about data types, but to be very clear, let's try to search for MySQL data types. And let me go back to the MySQL dev.mysql.com. This is the official website for MySQL. And whatever you're seeing here is 8.4 data types. So let me just change it to 8.0 because we installed 8.0, MySQL 8.0. So now we are in this URL and I need to store a numeric data. I need to understand numeric data types. and integer exact values. So why I'm looking at exact value is that, so my business requirement says I want to store numbers between, there's, we already discussed about, we have tiny int, small int, medium int, integer, big int. But for these range, what is the data type? So you just make a note here. Let's take, I'm writing data type. Now numbers between 1000 to this value. So if I go back to this browser once again, let's say this. Now you can see here, so my requirement is numbers between 1001. So you can see here, if it is between, the small int can actually store up to 65,000, but it says more. So you can actually go for medium int. Medium int will do, but most of the times we'll be using integer. So now what I'll do is I'll create this as integer, because integer can store values from, minimum value is this much value and maximum value is this much value. So definitely between the range that we need. So in this case, medium int also will work, which will take 3 bytes, but let me create as integer. So this ID I'm going to create as integer. A name up to 30 characters. So you know it's varchar and 30. And then salary. So you have salary between this. Again, you can use integer because the range of integer is minus to this value. So integer will do here as well. And date. So we have already discussed, like there are 5 types of data types. And for now, I'm just creating as date data type. Now email ID up to 35 characters. So you have to write varchar and 35. And age 20 to 100. Now here you can see 20 to 100, definitely integer will be big data type, because you, 4 bytes will take. You don't really need integer because the age is 20 to 100 only. So you can select the tiny int, because tiny int can store minus 128 to 127. So there's a minimum value that can store and maximum value. So definitely you can go for tiny int. So now I'll be writing here tiny int. Now again, tiny int, and you don't need to store a negative value. So you can actually make use of this something called unsigned. So we'll not be discussing right now about unsigned, but you can actually make use of this unsigned. But anyway, let's not worry about it right now. So you are clear like what data types you have to use. Now let's get started to create a table. Let's go back. And before you create a table, make sure that the default database is selected. You just need to right click on this database and select set as default, and that should be bold. Now let's create a table. So if you want to create a table, all you have to do is create and table employee. So now I need to create the table employee. So this is the keyword, create table employee. Just put bracket here, and then you write the first column ID and data type. So ID and data type. So let's write here ID and data type as integer, comma. And ideally, you also should make this as a primary key. So, but we will discuss about constraints in the next module. So for now, let's create this simply with ID integer. The next one is name varchar 30. So var name. So first you have to write name and write here varchar 30. Then we have salary integer. I'm writing salary integer. Now you might see name is actually turning to blue color because it's actually a keyword. But for now, if it gives an error, we'll try to fix it, but otherwise it's fine. So if you're using keywords, you need to use here square brackets, but for now, don't worry about it. So now name, ID, name, salary, and the next one is date of joining. So I'm going to write here DOJ, and it's date. And the next one we have is email ID. So I'm going to write here email ID. And then I'll be writing here varchar 35. And the last one we have is age, which is tiny int. So I'm writing here age and tiny int. So this is how, now I've just written the code for creating a table with the data types. Ideally, you should have add some constraints as primary key, unique constraint, not null constraint and all, but we'll learn about constraints next, later. So select this. Once you're done with, you can put semicolon at the last. Now you just need to select all these lines and then click on this execute, and that will create the table. So now immediately it will not reflect here, just refresh it. And if you see here, you will see here that the table expand this, and you will see that employee table got created. So this is how you have to create a table. So we just learned about how to create database, how to make it default, and we have just created a table. In the next module, we will learn how to insert data to the table. So I hope you are clear with this, how to create a table, and thank you.